TheorySabers.com. Over 7 years ago, I created a video called Why Didn't the Jedi Use Order 65 in Revenge of the Sith? And in this video, I went over the intricate details about Order 65 and how they were different from Order 66. Now we all know the story of Order 66, the devastating command that wiped out the Jedi Order and paved the way for the rise of the Empire. I mean, heck, all my merch and branding is Order 66. It was an extremely pivotal moment in all of Star Wars, and it changed the face of the galaxy going forwards from what Palpatine always wanted to do by turning the entire universe against the Jedi. Now, there were other orders in place, and I've made videos on many of them. But today I want to talk more about Order 65 with more detail over 7 years later. Now, Order 66 was in favor of Palpatine, but what if there was another order, one that could have stopped Palpatine in his tracks? That's exactly what Order 65 was, and it was a contingency plan written into Republic military doctrine during the Clone Wars. Unlike Order 66, which targeted the Jedi, this order was designed to remove the Chancellor himself if he was ever deemed unfit to lead. But here's the thing. Even though this plan existed, it was never executed. Why? And what would have happened if it had been? Let's talk about all that. Now, Order 65 was part of a set of 150 contingency orders created for the Grand Army of the Republic. These orders were designed to cover every possible emergency scenario during the Clone Wars, from natural disasters to full-scale treason. Order 65, explained in Republic Commando True Colors by Karen Travis, is clear. If the Galactic Senate or the Republic Security Council declared the Chancellor unfit to lead, the Grand Army of the Republic was authorized to arrest him, or use lethal force if necessary. Control of the army would then transfer to an acting Chancellor until a new leader could be appointed. So at its core, this was a safeguard meant to protect the Republic from internal threats, ensuring that no single individual could abuse their power unchecked. On paper, it sounds like a brilliant idea, but as we know, the reality was far more complicated. So first, let's talk about the challenges of actually activating Order 65. It's very interesting. One of two things needed to first happen. One, the Galactic Senate had to vote by majority to declare the Chancellor unfit. And two, the Republic Security Council, a smaller, elite Senate committee, had to make the same declaration. Now here's the problem. By the time of the events of Revenge of the Sith were unfolding, both of these paths were essentially blocked. You see, this is why I've said so many times that Palpatine is the #1 manipulator, and he's just so patient. Palps had spent years consolidating and building up his power, using the chaos of the Clone Wars to manipulate public perception. To most senators, he wasn't a threat. He was the Republic's savior. He had been granted emergency powers with overwhelming Senate approval, and his propaganda machine painted him as a tireless defender of peace and stability. Even among the few senators who suspected Palpatine's true nature, like Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, there simply weren't enough votes to challenge him. The Republic Security Council, which advised Palpatine directly, was even more tightly controlled by his loyalists, making it an even less likely avenue for invoking Order 65. So, now we might be wondering, why didn't the Jedi just use Order 65 against Palpatine? The answer lies in both legends and canon. Now in canon, the Jedi were completely unaware of the full scope of the contingency orders. These objectives, these directives were military protocols created under Palpatine's guidance, and their true nature was hidden from the Jedi High Council. Now in Legends, the Jedi knew about the existence of the contingency orders but had no authority to activate Order 65. The directive explicitly required political approval, either from the Senate or the Security Council. The Jedi Council couldn't simply walk into the Senate chamber and accuse the Chancellor of treason. It would have been seen as an act of insurrection, especially given Palpatine's carefully cultivated public image. This is exactly one of the reasons why Dooku left the council. He felt they were just too deep into politics, and Qui-Gon definitely didn't respect them as much for this reason. Of course, being a master, but not being on the council. Now, for the Sith, Why wasn't Order 65 this huge threat? Surely Palpatine would be worried about it. And this is the brilliant part about Palpatine. His manipulation of the system ensured that Order 65 would never be used against him. So first, let's talk about the clones. The Grand Army of the Republic was programmed to carry out the contingency orders without hesitation, but Palpatine's influence extended far beyond the orders themselves. The same genetic conditioning that allowed the clones to execute Order 66 also instilled an unquestioning loyalty to the Supreme Chancellor. Even if Order 65 had been issued, it's unclear whether the clones would have followed it in practice, especially if it conflicted with their loyalty to Palpatine. Then there's the Senate. By the time of the Clone Wars' final days, dissenting voices like Padme Amidala and Bail Organa were drowned out by Palpatine's loyalists. The Senate was no longer a functioning democracy. It was a rubber stamp for Palpatine's agenda. Finally, there's Palpatine himself. Even if the Senate or Security Council had managed to invoke Order 65, arresting or killing a Sith Lord of his caliber would have been no small task. Without the full strength of the Jedi Order and the cooperation of the clones, any attempt to remove Palpatine would likely have ended in disaster. So what if Order 65 had been activated? And this is where we go a little bit off rails in this video, which, like I said, I made about almost 8 years ago, but this is a much more detailed and in-depth video, I would feel, considering my Star Wars knowledge is vastly superior now to what it was so many years ago, almost a decade ago. So let's get into this little fan fiction while we're in this video. So imagine yourself stepping into an alternate timeline for a moment, and the Senate had managed to invoke Order 65. The most likely scenario is a full-scale battle within the Senate chamber itself. The clones would storm the building, attempting to arrest Palpatine, but he wouldn't go down without a fight, of course. As Sidious, his mastery of the dark side would make him nearly unstoppable against standard clone forces. I mean, he would probably just throw his 2 lightsabers infinitely as he just killed them while they were coming into a confined doorway, or just evoked his dark aura abilities and just confused everyone and lightninged all of them into ash, just like in the comic Darth Vader and the Ghost Prison at the very end, where Palpatine gets his powers back. The Jedi Order, if they had survived long enough to learn about Order 65, might have joined the effort. Imagine a coalition of Jedi Masters and clone troopers fighting side by side, just like the Clone Wars, against the Sith Lord. Now, this is a scenario that feels like something out of a myth, and it's one of the great what-ifs of Star Wars that I'd love to actually animate one day. And if you've made it this far in the video, let me see your support for that in the comments, and maybe I'll get the team working on it. If Palpatine had been removed, the Republic might have had a chance to recover, but it wouldn't have been easy. The Separatist forces were still a major threat, and the Republic was already teetering on the edge of collapse. Without Palpatine's influence, the galaxy might have fractured into chaos before a new leader could emerge. Order 65 represents a fascinating glimpse into the Republic's attempt to safeguard itself against tyranny. On paper, it was a brilliant idea, a way to ensure that no leader, not even the Chancellor, could hold absolute power. But in practice, it was doomed from the start. Palpatine's control over the Senate, his influence over the clones, and his own dark power made the activation of Order 65 virtually impossible. It's one of those moments in Star Wars history where you can't help but wonder, what if things had been different? Could the Republic have saved itself, or was its fall inevitable from the moment Palpatine rose to power? Was this the will of the Force? Or could something more powerful have shifted it? That's my Star Wars theory, but I would love to hear yours in the comments below. Could Order 65 have worked, or was Palpatine's grip on the Republic too strong for anyone to stop? It's always fascinating discussing these different theories and all of the different orders. Now, I would love to research all of the different orders that were there. Like I said, there were about 150 of them, and I certainly don't know all of them, but I think compiling that into one video that could probably be hours long would be really entertaining and really fun, but it would take a lot of work. So if you've made it this far in the video, let me know. Would you like me to compile all of the information regarding Order 1 to 150 into a video on the channel? I'll be reading your guys' comments. As always, have a fantastic day or night, my fellow Jedi and Sith friends. I love you all very much. And as George Lucas said, never lose hope. Until next time, the Force will be with you, always.